we have just opened the floodgates to actually build up a proper financial bubble. If you compare to the housing crisis, or if you compare to the dot-com bubble in the early 2000s, you first had to make these products available for the bubble to build. And that's the exact stage we are at right now with crypto.
People screaming that ETH is about to reach 10K, 20K, 30K, 40K, and that it should flip Visa, MasterCard, and all of the others. And my only question is on what basis, like what's the foundation for this argument?
Financial absurdism and financial nihilism as narratives are not dead at all. If you look at like broader economic media,
buybacks are one of the few mechanisms in the space that work and that justify like any sort of valuation. Like hyperliquid being the main and best use.
Stellar still one of the assets that I really don't understand what they are still doing up there.
ETH, I would find it very surprising if it doesn't break all-time highs. Solana still, it is $420 coded. Like everything below that would just be very disappointing. And if it could break these highs once the Solana ETFs are live.
In crypto, the startup success ratio is probably the same.
Welcome to this next iteration of the Odyssey X Swag Roundtable. How are you doing, Yuri?
Doing very well. Super stoked to be here once again. Thanks for having me.
Very nice. So it's been around 2 weeks since the last edition of this format. So ever since August 5th, we've seen the second leg of the ETH run-up. And for BTC, we also had quite a decent run-up to a slight, but still a new all-time high in August 14. And since then, we've corrected a little bit. So what's your outlook on the market right now? Do you think the bottom is in? Do you think we are in a bull trap right now, but still have some room to go lower, or bull market over, pack the bags, and go to the beach for the next 2 years?
Yeah, I think closer to the last example actually, but not for the reason that most people look at it. I'm just a little bit surprised that, during August, when usually not much is going on, it seems like people are just tired and everyone wants to get rid of their bags as fast as possible. This is how it seems like to me. And we see a lot of excitement, overly excitement, I would say, in the market, even though for me in some areas it's very hard for me to wrap my head around where the excitement is coming from or on what it is based precisely. So yeah, I think we're like in this weird phase where everyone is like super excited for like the next 2 to 3, 4 months. But I've barely talked to people who said, okay, I'm also bullish for 2026 or even 2027. Like it seems like everyone is saying, okay, now let's get rid of all of our assets as fast as possible. So yeah, we anticipate the bear market again. What about you? What's your sentiment feeling?
Still pretty bullish. I mean, I still think we are far from any retail exuberance and hype. On the traditional finance and financial infrastructure side of things, we have just opened the floodgates to actually build up a proper financial bubble. If you compare to the housing crisis, or if you compare to the dot-com bubble in the early 2000s, you first had to make these products available for the bubble to build. And that's the exact stage we are at right now with crypto. Like all of these retirement funds and 401ks being able to buy crypto now, ETFs becoming mainstream, and even companies who are not able to buy crypto exposure via these ETFs may be able to buy treasury companies. I mean, of course, we have seen a lot of financial engineering and a lot of financial constructs, both in the TradFi section as well as on-chain, that are not necessarily the most prudent or the most resilient things. But like, if you compare to the degeneracy that can even happen on traditional finance rails, I think we are still far from the top. But maybe like more specifically, what's your outlook on the individual assets? Like if you compare BTC to ETH to Sol and the rest of altcoins.
Like, I always have my eyes on Bitcoin first, and I think Bitcoin is in a tremendous place. Let me actually try to share my screen here. Can I do that? Can I present something? Yes, I can. Here
Yeah, you
we
should be able
go.
to.
Can you see it?
Yes.
I mean, obviously, Bitcoin, the big old grandpa, so to say, in a strong position, as always, more than a 4x away from Ethereum. Ethereum caught up. It seems like Ethereum finally realized that we used to be in a bull market. So Ethereum finally woke up. XRP, I really don't understand what XRP is doing up there, but I don't understand it for the past 5 years now. So probably I will never understand. Then, of course, the usual stablecoin competitors, Tether and USDC. BNB, like, jokes aside, I think BNB is like such a good bet if you basically say, okay, I'm betting on an altcoin season and I don't know where the next couple of months are going, because BNB is like one of these assets that used to do very well in the crypto industry, just because BNB has access to so much liquidity and it's in their interest for BNB to do well. And then, of course, Solana in a good position. I think we discussed it. Hyperliquid could be like one of the most attractive bets. Stellar, still one of the assets that I really don't understand what they are still doing up there. And one of my favorites is obviously Sui, as someone working at Zweig. But yeah, the rest, I think nothing much has changed over the course of the past couple of weeks, right?
Yeah, I think the sector of these exchange and centralized exchange tokens, that is pretty interesting. Maybe you can pull up the exchange token category on CoinGecko in the meantime. But for example, if you look at the past days' announcements of Mantle and Bybit, I think they are trying to turn the MNT token into sort of a BNB equivalent, but for Bybit. And I think that is a sector that could heat up quite a bit. I think also OKX with the OKB token, they recently decided to burn like half of the supply. So this thing has been up, I think 2x or 3x over a few days. MNT price action looking pretty decent as well. And the BNB token has one of the very few majors that has broken all-time highs yet. I mean, Solana did, but that's already more than half a year ago. And BNB has been like creeping up and holding up decently well. Personally, I do not think that BNB offers a great upside from here anymore. Like, it's already sitting at what, like a 100 billion market cap or FDV. I mean, yeah, it maybe could go 2x higher. So like if you are betting on the
But Max,
bull
that's the
market,
thing. That's the thing. We all said this for the past 5 years, and it keeps up so strongly up there.
yeah, but I mean, BNB has bottomed at, I think, like 250 or 300 during the bear market. So it's up 3x from there. BTC is up 7x. Like, it has
Yeah.
underperformed Bitcoin from the bottom of the bear market. Of course, it has also not had a huge drawdown. So if you're like looking to minimize drawdown within the majors, then BNB might be an interesting position there. But I think in terms of like overall capturing crypto growth directly, I'm not sure if BNB is still like the best path to do that. Like, if you want to get centralized exchange exposure, like since the activity and like the growth of these centralized exchanges is very correlated amongst each other, I would probably look for higher beta plays, for example, the MNT token, or if you are betting more on the catch up of decentralized exchanges, especially in the perp space, I still think that Hyperliquid offers more upside than BNB. Like, if you think the Hyperliquid thesis to its logical conclusion, it should probably approximate the market cap of the BNB token. Like, I do not have a specific time horizon on my thesis, and personally, I would be very surprised if it manages to do that in the next couple of months or like in the remainder of the cycle. But I think over the long term, it has decent odds of achieving that. But yeah, maybe on ETH, like when we talked before, you had a very interesting opinion on the whole ETH run up and the sustainability of that. So do you wanna share that?
Yeah, just one thing, because you said so also one disclosure. I do not hold any BNB, but for me it's just like interesting to see that BNB is up there like for so long. It's just like one last thing, because you mentioned it outperformed against Bitcoin. I mean, so far we didn't really see an altcoin season, so it's like something that applies to most of the alts. There are not many coins that are on top of my head that perform better than Bitcoin over the past 2 years or 1.5 years. Not even Ethereum, by the way. So I think the only ones that come to my mind is, I think, Solana, and then it's getting tricky. But yeah, whatever. Getting back to Ethereum. Let me actually go back to the cryptocurrency page. So as you can see, Ethereum did quite well over the past couple of days. And the magic sauce, so to say, for that run up are the treasury companies that started to buy ETH very aggressively. So we saw a lot of liquidity entering Ethereum, or like ETH better said, which led to this tremendous uprun. And also the narrative spreaded quite well, or like quite fast, that everyone is now buying ETH. And yeah, it seems like everything is on track again. So all of the ETH critics that we had over the past couple of weeks, months, or even year or two just vanished all of a sudden. But my question was, and this is what we talked about, I mean, yeah, it's all fun and games that we now see Ethereum nearing its all-time high again. I mean, I'm also super happy as a person who has held ETH for more than 5 years now. I'm super, super happy about that, yes. But my question is, okay, fundamentally, what changed? I think the Ethereum community, the builder community, is still in a weird place, kind of this ivory tower kind of a thing, where they think, okay, we can fix everything with decentralization. The L2 roadmap, it makes sense in many parts, but not not in all parts for me personally. And there's still the same critic I have. Yes, the EVM gets adopted, but there is no value getting traced back to Ethereum. And as someone who's coming from the Cosmos ecosystem, I might have some PSD there, because I'm really, and I was like very scared about Ethereum basically, yeah, choosing the same path here as well. Is okay, you have like a tremendous technology and it's someone traces back to the same tech stack, but where's the value generation? Because it seems like with Stripe entering the area and some of the stablecoin chains, where is basically the value accrual for ETH or the Ethereum blockchain? That's still the one question that I have. ETH is pumping, but it seems like everyone is like a little bit forgetting about that, and people screaming that ETH is about to reach 10K, 20K, 30K, 40K, and that it should flip Visa, MasterCard, and all of the others. And my only question is on what basis, like what's the foundation for this argument, except that some people are buying it. Where's the value? That's my question.
No, I think I agree on most of your criticism there, but I think we give it very different ways. Like, for example, the issue of ETH not having solved any of its existing issues, technically that is correct. But also, while price was going down, or while ETH has been lagging behind Bitcoin, the significance of these issues has been exaggerated to the downside too. And now it's just getting ignored. I think it's a very, like, the sentiment around ETH is very emblematic of price leading fundamentals in crypto and price leading narrative. Like when ETH was at 1.4K and BTC ETH at 5-year lows in April this year, like everybody was very critical about ETH and holding them accountable and the EF accountable for like every single thing. And now everybody's ignoring it. Like the same tail risks, the same criticisms you can bring forward against BTC are not significantly different from when BTC was at 16K at the low of a bear market in late 2022. So like the we should not underestimate the reflexivity of these assets. And like, while most crypto assets in the mid to long run will bear the consequences of not having any quote unquote objective fundamentals, I think there's at max a handful which will sort of achieve a special status, sort of like gold has, sort of like oil has, where it is just becoming a consensus that this is an asset or like a commodity integral to economic utility and like coordination and just like the functioning of the internet economy, and their value will be defined by what is beyond typical financial metrics. I think Bitcoin has already achieved that status, and I still think that BTC approximating the market cap of gold is pretty much the easiest and most straightforward macro trade in the next decade. And I think ETH is also about to establish this status as a very special asset where you do not have to justify the entirety of its valuation by typical financial metrics. And I think right now we are at a very interesting pivot point, because with Tom Lee, I do think that now ETH has found its Michael Saylor. Like, is that purely aligned with the OG ethos of Ethereum of being decentralized and like unbanking the banks, whatever? No, it's not. Just as Saylor holding 2%, 3% of the BTC supply, and like now BlackRock with ETFs holding a significant chunk of BTC, that is also not completely aligned with the original vision. But like, we cannot forget that like this entire industry of finance is optimized to make number go up. And like, the people will be happy if they become richer or wealthier, or at least not poorer, in a time of the denominator being the US dollar and every other fiat currency being devalued like completely down to the bushes. Like, it's there is no other alternative. And I think like ETH has a good chance of riding this narrative up much further than it is at right now. It will be interesting to see whether Solana can catch up on this too at the later weeks or months of the bull market. I think the consensus is that Solana ETFs will get approved in, I think, October or November, where the next deadline is. So if we see a lot of Solana treasury companies being spun up around that, and like a revival of the Solana ecosystem, I think that could become a very interesting pivot point. And I think if Solana manages to capture a similar run-up as ETH, that will likely fuel a meme coin season again, just by the on-chain wealth effect in the Solana eco being created. And I would think that this is going to be very close to marking the cycle top. But welcome, owner, by the way.
Hey guys, I've been listening. Go on.
Pretty well. What's the state of the trenches?
I just heard Tom Lee. I saw the tweet this morning as well. I think Suzu retweeted it. Fascinating. What's the lore with him?
I personally have not heard of him before the whole ETH treasury company rise, and yeah, but he seems to have a pretty good reputation in traditional finance. He has raised a few things before, managed a few funds. So like, I mean, obviously he doesn't have like the AAA status of like a Warren Buffett or like a Peter Thiel or Charlie Munger or Peter Druckenmiller or whatever, but he seems to be very, very close to like that category of people. So I think it's very likely that like the TLDR is that Tom Lee is by far the best candidate to become Ethereum's Michael Saylor.
Yeah, the only thing is like really, I mean, I agree with so many things that you just mentioned, especially with eyes on the current devaluation of USD and everything. But I really think, okay, so what is basically the value that this industry is currently building, creating? What's that all about? Because now, like, I believe you're also a lot in the meme trenches, right, Max? And there's this one meme of all of these chats and bodybuilders who basically said in the beginning, yeah, we're building a new financial industry, we're doing this and that and decentralization. And on the lower end, they're like all of these guys say looked like the opposite of a chat, basically are saying, okay, basically the hard contrary stuff to that.
Yeah.
And
Or
for
like
me,
the
it's like,
crypto back in the days and crypto nowadays meme.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. And I mean, like, I also understand and completely align on that the industry is maturing whatsoever. But for me, I look at it maybe also a little bit traumatized by the past couple of years. But when there is a messias, basically, a new messias that everyone is talking about, doing price predictions, and everyone is all of a sudden talking about ETH at 10, 15, 30 or 40K, I'm getting very cautious, and especially when I do not see any like major developments on the chain side of things, and make sure to leave this party sooner rather than later. If but that's just my personal opinion.
I mean, personality cults, they are an asset in a bull market and a liability in a bear market. So I think right now, if we look at macro, if we look at the pending rate cuts and just the climate in equities and other risk assets, I think it is still much more likely than not that we are in a bull market and that the current stage we are in is much more resembling a bear trap than the top of a cycle. Just like if you think about the two mainstream perceptions of the market right now, it's either like this time is not going to be different and it's just going to be exactly like all the other cycles. If that's the opinion you're holding, then I mean it's very unlikely that the top is in yet because ETH hasn't even breached its all-time highs. We have rarely seen all-time highs in the recent weeks of like popular altcoins. Many of them have not even exceeded their January highs or like the highs that they have made throughout Q4 last year or Q1 this year. So yeah, there's no retail exuberance. So if you're holding the opinion that this cycle is just going to be as the last one, it's very unlikely that the cycle top is in. And I mean, if you're more on the extended cycle, super cycle, whatever you want to call it, side of things, there's also no reason to think that the cycle top is in, because if you are acknowledging that, okay, now the drivers of price action and inflows have become very different to last cycle, that it's much more institutional driven versus retail driven. Well, I mean, the institutions are yet to bid Solana. The institutions are yet to bid hype with a couple of more treasury companies and like to accumulate all of these other things. I mean, the only sort of top signal resembling news that I've seen, I think it was
Just
this
Max,
morning.
one thing, I'm not saying that the top is in, but I'm saying that, you know, the party is on, but I'm already looking for the wardrobe and, you know, basically drinking my last one or two drinks, more or less. But I'm not on the exit.
Yeah, I think like time-wise, I 100% agree that we are way closer to the top than to the bottom of the cycle. But price action-wise, I think we are, in terms of like BTC, we've probably captured most of the upside. Like it would personally surprise me if we break 200K this cycle. My base case is that we'll peak somewhere between 140 and like 160, 170K. Everything above that, like it's nice to have. I mean, ETH, I would find it very surprising if it doesn't break all-time highs. I think Solana still, as I've voiced it a couple of months ago, it is $420 coded. Like everything below that would just be very disappointing. And I think that it could break these highs once the Solana ETFs are live and we just see more optimism and like serious capital inflows in the Solana ecosystem. But yeah, on the note of a Solana eco, we can touch on the Launchpad wars a little later. Maybe Onur can give us some perspective there as our resident trencher of the group. But yeah, I think like no matter how you look at it on the cycle perspective, like DeFi is getting better than ever. If you look at the UX compared to what it was in summer 2021 or like early 2022, like it is a complete different order of magnitude. Like, of course, you still cannot compare it to Robinhood or to like sending money to your friends on PayPal. We are still far away from that. There's still a lot of friction, like a lot of the UX issues, these still prevail. But if you compare to it to last cycle and to just zoom out and see, okay, how far have we come as an industry? I think like we should at least be able to exceed the valuations of last cycle. Like, are the valuations going to exceed the fundamentals at the peak of the cycle? Yes, absolutely they will. And I think we will see pretty brutal and pretty violent drawdowns after that. I don't think these drawdowns will be as bad as they have been last cycle, but like the cyclicality of this industry is not going to disappear into nowhere out of a sudden. But yeah, so like that's my rambling for the day. Owner, maybe can you give us a little update on the state of the Launchpad wars? What's going on with Pump? Is it dead? Are they finally doing something? Is Bonk still alive, or what's going on there?
I think Bonk is alive again, but the weird thing about Bonk, and let me pull some Jupiter data here to have a more informed opinion. But there's actually pretty interesting news about all that. Okay, so as of right now, Pump has 80% market share. Bonk has 10% market share. Bags has 2%, believe 2%, and so on. There's a couple interesting things about the Launchpad wars. It seems to be that Pump is back number one and basically the alpha Launchpad. But every now and then, Bonk comes back with dominating the market share for some time. Again, if you ask me, that indicates crime, but it could, I don't know, it could be something else which I don't understand. But the current distribution of market share of Launchpads seems to be the most normal to me, which is like Pump is 80% and the rest is like shared amongst the others. Yeah. Now, that being said, there's a new one, which is called Heaven, and obviously it has all the heavenly themes. I think their blue chip coin or their equity token is Light.
Yeah, and I think it has been running up quite a bit ever since the ICO, right?
Exactly. That was an ICO. It's been running up to 120 million. Yeah, I honestly don't really know what the differentiator is with Heaven. It seems simple enough. I'm not too educated on their mechanism, whether it's kind of like any different, but that's kind of the latest and greatest kid on the block.
I mean, essentially, I just read the like launch announcement or like pre-launch announcement of Heaven Dex. It was a pretty long essay on Twitter about the failings of the current like economic incentive mechanisms that we've seen in the Launchpad and meme coin space, and it all seemed to make a lot of sense at that point in time. And I still think that all of these issues prevail. Personally, I am skeptical to like see to what extent Heaven Dex will solve that. I mean, it's kind of a vertical integration of more use cases and like financial primitives around token launches and meme coins, where you can integrate like stuff like lending markets, liquidity pools, all of that stuff, and just like make the whole graduation thing a little smoother than it is on pump.fun or bonk.fun. But again, it does not solve the underlying issue of we have way too many tokens for way too few use cases and stuff that is actually worth tokenizing right at this point in time. Do I think this will change in the mid to long term? Yes, I think that's very likely. Like once we are able to actually bring equity or equity resembling tokens on chain, I think that could be very lucrative for these launch pads. But right now, I think the ICM meta with what was that thing called? Like it was not launch.fun, but like launch coin or something, like the whole Ben Pasternak thing. It is such BS that you're just like coupling a meme coin to a business. Maybe if that business is even profitable in the real world, like if you do not have any underlying claim, any underlying legal rights, any underlying structure, any standardized framework for these tokens. Like it is just a meme coin, and there has been an overproduction of these for the last 12 months now. I do think that there will be a return of like short-lived metas of certain meme coins and like cultural trends. I'd say if you're active on like the social media of like Gen Z and Gen Alpha, you'll probably stumble across like around a handful of memeable things a week, but that's about it. More than that, you cannot really produce meme coins off these launch pads that will have a sticking power for longer than a few hours or longer than a few days.
Yeah,
On
no,
note
totally.
of, like token buybacks, hasn't Pump started to buy back some of the Pump ecosystem meme coins? And what's your take on that?
So I don't think there is kind of an official claim. There was an address, I think it was Kippa with Soul, or something like that, that started buying back tokens. I haven't seen a consistency there. It seems to have been more irregular, but the amounts match roughly 100% or even more of the revenue of Pump per day. It's not kind of a consistent, eased out daily or hourly buy. It's more every here and there have been some purchases. Some people even speculate and short, saying that was never even promised and they're just like doing it for virtue signaling and
Wait,
short-term
there were
pump.
no buybacks promised 3,000 years ago?
Not 3,000 years ago.
I knew that this joke was coming.
I was wondering if I should make it, and I was like, I did it last time. It's kind of boring, but Max, glad you filled the gap.
I mean, you're the Arab guy, so you have to make the Jew jokes. We are not allowed to do that.
I'm the Semite? No. So yeah, no. I really don't know. So there has been this 25% buyback information that's been out there. I don't know how defensible that is, but there's definitely some buybacks happening. And in general, I feel like buybacks are, one of the few mechanisms in the space that work and that justify like any sort of valuation. Like Hyperliquid being the main and best use case, in my opinion. And if you look at that, like Pump has around Hyperliquid numbers, and it's 10% of its market caps. Again, without having any alpha, I think it's probably a fine bet if you want to gamble on launchpads.
Yeah, I think the comparison between Pump and Hyperliquid is a little bit flawed because they do have, I mean, yes, the broader sector they are in is both trading infrastructure, but both of their customer segment and also the consistency and resilience of these revenue models is extremely different. Like if you look at Hyperliquid, you have an entire DeFi ecosystem being built around this, and it is the base infrastructure for like trading very established assets by now that are ranging in the billions of, trillions of market caps. If you look at Bitcoin, ETH sitting at 500 billion, and like all the longer tail of relevant and less relevant altcoins. Whereas Pump.fun, I mean, I'm not sure about the revenue models of the integrated Pump DEX, but I mean, most of the money they make is through launches and so the creation of new assets. And like, as I've alluded to a few minutes ago, I think that entire segment is still far from like the, like base demand for new token launches. So like, I'd be very careful with comparing it to Hyperliquid. I mean, still, I think given that they have a 2 billion war chest in cash, they have ample opportunity to do something, either in terms of acquisitions or in terms of bootstrapping incentives. If you look at the buyback meta, that is such a weird crypto internal thing to do. Like if you look at traditional finance and at other young companies, it would be a complete waste of money to just like give cash handouts for people to use your products. And probably compare it to some of the startups we've seen in the last decade or two, which have a very like capital intensive business model, or where you have like a low margin and you need to bootstrap demand. I think Uber is quite an interesting model there, where they have heavily subsidized rides in the upcoming years of a company with a lot of VC money. That is still different. Like giving a rebate or like a discount is still different from just giving a cash handout. Also in terms of like the sell pressure and like holding dynamics perspectives. Because like if you give a discount, you just make the product more accessible and you help bootstrap demand. Whereas if you give a cash handout, for this to work in the mid to long run, you need to have the people who receive the cash handout believe in the product or respective equity in the mid to long run in order for them to hold it and not just sell it off and dump the token price. So with these buybacks, you kind of try to circumvent that. And if you look at how early companies usually work, I mean, they're not profitable from the get-go because in the real world, they usually have like higher capital expenditures. But in crypto, especially if you look at stuff like Pump.Fun, I mean, there is no economic cost to creating a token. Like there is no like costs of goods sold in that respect. So the economics there are a little different, where on the one hand, you don't have an actual economic necessity to raise these enormous rounds of VC money, but like Pump still decided to do that. And I mean, obviously they were capable of doing that. I mean, it was the largest ICO, I think, since 2017 days. I do not think there was a single 1 billion ICO even in the last cycle. But like that's pretty impressive, even though they don't technically need the capital unless it is reserved for mergers and acquisitions. And like, yeah, on the other hand, since they do not really have a cost of goods sold, they can in theory use revenue to buy back tokens. But if you extrapolate that out in time, like it puts you in a very unfavorable position as a company, because if you suddenly reduce these buybacks or if you stop them completely, like if your margins either compress or like your expenses go up or your revenue decreases, like that is always going to be perceived as a negative thing. Like it would not be good for the reputation of an early tech company that is like starting to give out dividends from day one of being publicly traded to suddenly suspend these dividends. Usually dividends come at a much later point in time. So yeah, I think that is going to be an interesting dynamic to monitor. And I do not think that there's like a one size fits all or like a objectively best approach we can just borrow from TradFi that will like apply to all of these crypto companies, just because the revenue and cost structures are so different. But
I don't agree at all. I think there's a couple issues there. So regarding Pump.Fun, the majority of their revenue comes from the DEX, not from the Launchpad. I actually think the Launchpad, in the sense of launching as many tokens as possible, will move more and more into the background. It has just been the meta of the cycle, and it was kind of their go-to-market. But I think like if you will look at Pump.Fun and even like 2 years from now, I think the Launchpad will be quite behind in like it won't be prominent, I think, in the relevance of where the revenue comes from or what is presented even to the user. With regards to what is presented to the user, I would say even today, it's not the most important feature. It's kind of hidden in the background. I think it's kind of clear that they're focusing on the DEX and on their streaming. So it's kind of like also communicated that their strategy is going head to head against like streaming providers. So I'm curious to see how that plays out. When it comes to the comparison of non-crypto startups to traditional startups, I'm not with you, to be honest, because the whole point of crypto, and the one thing I agree is probably that at one point that it should converge with like you just start a project. It doesn't matter what you started, but this is how you start a project. But like it's always been about the token. Like if you look at 99% of early startups, there's zero revenue and they fail. So there's nothing.
I mean, look at Story Protocol, look at Filecoin, or look at Celestia, or look at Chainlink. Like these things are usually sitting at like 0 to like maybe low digits.
These examples confirm what I just said. 99% of startups don't really have any significant revenue and then they fail. That's just the nature of a startup. Like, you are in search of a repeatable execution model you can scale up with more money. Like, you want to put $1 in and get a multiple out. But in order to get there, you have to find what works. And most people don't ever reach that state because they fail before. So that's what a startup is, right? So in crypto, the startup success ratio is probably the same. I mean, it has to be the same, if not slightly worse. But because you have a token and the token is a product or is supposed to be core part of the product, people already trade this thing. And now we have versions of where if the team has control over the liquidity of this thing, that's a significant revenue stream, right? And that's the main difference. So the revenue from the core product is probably still, for most tokens, the same. In Pump's example, it's different because that is their core business. So they actually are the 1% of startups that do have revenue. And I'm going to comment on dividends versus investments in a second. But I think that's kind of like the biggest difference between crypto and non-crypto startups, is that despite not having revenue, if you are in crypto, you can still sell. The founders can still make millions. There's going to be trading, which leads to a lot of volume and fees. If you control the liquidity position, you're going to be able to have an additional revenue source that normal startups that are not in crypto don't have access to. I think that's the biggest difference. Now, when it comes to what to do with that revenue, I mean, everyone is obviously, it's become a meme in itself, but like everyone is looking for that flywheel, right? So for Pump, which core business is being a DEX, in my opinion, right now, and trading, and I do think it makes sense to invest back into that and experiment with trying to find a flywheel. And in Hyperliquid's case, I do think so too. Like, I think, these are kind of interesting experiments, which I think, especially in Hyperliquid's case, I would say they work. They work quite well, actually. And yes, it's not how traditional businesses run their business, but traditional businesses, I think, like, I don't think as the industry, we should replicate what works in traditional. I think we should, with these tools at hand, try new things, try new primitives. And I think that's what they're trying to do. So that's why I think the comparison, like, why would you try to replicate everything from the old world just like on crypto? That doesn't make any sense to me. That's like the internet comes up, you just put a library and put it online, right? Like, it's books. No, that's not how it works. Like, we have more advanced tools now, so we should also have more advanced primitives with payment, investment, how value flows. And I think this is what they're trying to do. They're just like trying to model new forms of value flow that you can't even do as a non-crypto startup.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that there will be new forms of both financial and non-financial incentive coordination mechanisms emerging from that. But if we look at the majority of stuff that has stuck around in crypto or that has been able to attract high valuations over the last couple of months and like a lot of positive mindshare around it, it's usually like following the basics of just finance and economics as we know it from the traditional space. Like, Pump.Fun was able to raise a 1 billion round because they generated a huge ton of revenue. Hyperliquid ran up from $2 to almost $50 because they have been able to generate a consistent huge amount of revenue. Like stuff like Story Protocol, stuff like TIA, stuff like Filecoin that consistently gets hated upon because it doesn't have any revenue. Like, it tries to have a multi-billion valuation or FDV that is completely devoid of any fundamental thesis you can come up around that. But I mean, yeah, like, it's like, I mean, we covered the whole like mimetic and reflexive component of pricing in crypto in the earlier episode. So let's maybe pivot to some other topics just to look at our Q3 expectations and outlooks under the assumption that we all seem to share that the cycle top is not yet in. What besides the majors do you guys think will perform well for the remainder of Q3 and the cycles? Or like, do you think that all season is completely dead and we will see a completely majors and institutional dominated cycle?
If you don't mind, I can
Yeah.
start, Yuri. I woke up bearish with regards to alt cycle, and I actually look at what we've been discussing the whole time here. So the meaning of alt cycle for sure has changed. Alt cycle in between 2014 and 2017 meant everything but Bitcoin pumps, and it pumps more. Alt cycle in 2020, all the way until 2021, meant DeFi. Anything that was DeFi, DEX, some fruit or vegetable that you could farm, pumped. That cycle, for example, I was not too exposed to DeFi, and it was a very different cycle than 2016-17 for me. 2016-17 was insane. You had everything explodes, and then DeFi summer, I didn't have as much exposure to DeFi, but every DeFi thing pumped, right? So now I really think, because everything exploded, in terms of tokens and metas and AI and memes and whatnot, launchpads, you name them, I actually think the majority of people will sit on assets that will not pump, so there won't be any cycle for them, whether you call it alt cycle or anything else. So I really think, major-wise, yes, XRP, as much as I hate it, is probably a better play than your average small meme coin or whatever, because I think those tokens will get some exposure. With regards to an alt cycle, I also think that Ethereum, Solana, and all these majors are probably fine tokens. But again, those tokens, what's the maximum they're going to do? A 2x, maybe a 3x. As you guys outlined when I was late, it's already pretty late in the cycle. We are closer to the top than to the beginning of the cycle. So do you want to risk large amounts of capital for X? Maybe. I don't know. I don't want to judge, but I probably wouldn't want to do. So what's left, right? I think there will be a very selected amounts of coins, which you can honestly probably count on a single hand, maybe two, that will have this, oh my god, this is the cycle we've been waiting for. The token from today's price to the peak price did a 100 to 200x. And 99.9% of the people will not have exposure to that. So the idea of this alt cycle, alt season where everything goes up, I'm very bearish on. I don't think it will happen at all.
Me neither. I think these times are over, just because the industry changed significantly. And I also think, okay, what's the upside from that? And for me, it seems everything's a little bit overheated. Plus, what fears me is, it feels like everyone is trying to sell some old positions, sell some old bags, especially if one great example. And then I need to jump, unfortunately. But one great example from all of that is the recent news that I've seen here. Is and I think this headline is so 2025 that someone leaves their existing project after raising 100 million plus to do a new AI venture. I think that's just comedy poor for 2025. But besides that, as far as I understood right, they are also trying to A16Z backed a treasury company to buy IP. And the market cap for IP is, I think, north in the billions, which is just insane. I think this describes the entire altcoin mania pretty well to me. There are way too many projects out there that received funding that is just beyond everything that we have seen in the past couple of years or before the 2021 bull run. And now there needs to be someone to basically buy at these insane valuations. And I don't see anyone buying, for example, Story Protocol at this insane valuation, or getting into Barrachain after it lost 90% of its TVL within a couple of weeks. I mean, where's who with
Do you think Barrachain is dead?
I'm not saying it's dead, but these VCs like
No,
put so
gun to
much
your
money.
head. Is Verachain dead or will it revive?
I think, I mean, what's dead? I mean, as long as there are like a couple of people farming something, it's not dead. But
I mean,
if
I'd consider that dead. I mean, there's also like a
okay,
handful of people using Filecoin, but like, do you think it will be able to compete, like, not necessarily with Ethereum, but maybe with some ETH L2s or like Avalanche or Sonic in terms of DeFi, TVL, and farming? Or do you think it will continue to drop off?
Avalanche and Sonic, I don't know, but I don't think that Barachain will be able to, not even close to compete with Solana, Sui, and the others, or like the good performing L2s. Not
I mean,
even close.
that cannot be a discussion even. Like,
Yeah.
I'm surprised about that question, Max.
No, well, I mean, I want to play devil's advocate. I'm just like asking stupid questions.
No, it's definitely. And we work with some of the people. I like them as people and everything, but like I think as a project, it's going to be very rough. You know why it's impossible to say it's dead? Because there can always be a delusional founder or community member who says, hey, like I'm going to turn this around for next cycle, rebuild it from the ground up, buy some supply up or whatever. So that's why, like,
this sounds like Cosmos.
Yeah, just said.
No. Cosmos is not that at all. Cosmos was a buyout. So it's kind of like I don't think the team would have put, I mean, of course not, like why would they? Would have put the same amount of work into Cosmos if there wouldn't have been the buyout. Fair game. Like I think they're trying their best and everything. But like it to that point though, you know, Polkadot, Cosmos, the 2017 ICO technology ecosystems being not the latest and greatest anymore when it comes to mindshare and attention plays a role in that, right? Like Barachain being an SDK chain is not in favor of Barachain. I mean, yes, there are examples now of like new chains. I think Circle and Stripe and whatnot. But have you seen them even mention Cosmos once? So I think like now it's very clear that there's no such thing as Cosmos. Like if you're a chain, you're a chain. You use whatever chain technology. There's whatever trade-off, but no Cosmos chain, I think, in the future will call themselves a Cosmos chain. That's just
Can just add one thing because then I unfortunately have to jump. But yes, 100% agree on that. And I think Ethereum also needs to be very careful to not repeat these mistakes because I still see like some of these, you know, very loyal Cosmos people, which is also like nice to see in the community, but saying, oh, look, Cosmos was right about everything, seeing the Stripe announcement. And I think, yes, so what? Can you buy lunch from that, from being right? No, you can't. Like, you were like, maybe like visionary, right? But the end scenario for like, for Cosmos and like value capture was like completely the wrong one. And I also hope that Ethereum is on the right track here because now I feel like a lot of Ethereum people are jumping on that bandwagon and say, oh, the EVM gets adopted and so on and so forth. They're all building like stablecoin chains. But what does it mean for Ethereum at the end of the day?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point there because like when you listen to the recent Bankless episodes, and I mean we discussed that a little bit earlier, Yuri, like this circle jerk around chains launching
with
pushed
10
by
validators,
centralized companies and just using the EVM or forking the EVM, that is not translating into value flows into ETH. Maybe indirectly you can make that claim, okay, it makes Ethereum, the network and the technology more valuable, and downstream of that, some of this value will accrue to Ether, the token, and it may be different than it was for Cosmos, but I mean, we've seen a lot of Cosmos Atom people hold that same thesis that this token will profit from just the technology being used, and I mean, they have been like blatantly wrong about that. Oh, yeah.
Anyways, Yuri, you have to run. Thanks.
Yes. Thank you so much. See you next week, guys.
See ya.
Yeah, I think like we have a few topics left, quick fire, but I think there's a little bit more to discuss. I think just to give my 2 cents to the rest of Q3 and like the play out of the cycle in terms of stuff, I think will perform well. So I do think if you look at growth and adoption metrics right now, the only thing that is standing out is like the broader DeFi ecosystem that is fueled by stablecoin growth and also like inflows into, for example, ETH through these treasury companies. So I do think that a lot of the stuff like Maker, Aave, Uniswap, maybe if there is more progress towards the fee switch stuff. But also if you look at like Pendle, Fluid, etc., I do think, and ENA, I mean, Pendle has just hit an all-time high in TVL, ENA as well, with the Athena stablecoin. I do think that these things have a decent shot at breaking all-time highs under the assumption that the cycle continues. I do not think that they will offer like the insane, crazy multiples. Like I do not think that they will 10x from here. Like I'd personally be quite surprised by that. But maybe like let's talk about a 2x, a 3x from here. So that will likely be the lead up. Then I think it's very likely that in October we will see the Solana ETFs approved, and that could lead to an inflow into the Solana ecosystem. And like I guess a lot of meme coin people are still holding Sol as sort of like the base meme coin money. So if we see traditional finance and treasury companies bidding Sol, that would create an on-chain wealth effect. And I do think that this could lead to a revival of the meme coin ecosystem. I think absent of Solana ETFs and like a repricing of Sol, I find it very hard to imagine meme coins being revived in this cycle. I mean, yes, financial absurdism and financial nihilism as narratives are not dead at all. I think if you look at like broader economic media and like podcast culture and like people trying to taking opinions on the sort of state of a nation, I think the whole like financial absurdism, financial nihilism narratives are picking back up, similar as they have been picking up in the first half of 2024. The base thesis behind memes and like hyper gambling, I do not think that this has been invalidated at all, because there's still a necessity to hyper gambling for younger generations if they want to make it towards the upper echelons of the economic class, and like the linear progression of a 9-to-5 career is as unappealing as ever. Like, of course, there are always going to be outliers, but I think the median take on that and the medium expected value has not changed at all.
Did you just soft chill NEAT?
What is NEAT?
You don't know NEAT?
No. What is NEAT?
Not an education and training. It's this like guy that's not working. The whole idea is like you promote unemployment.
Oh, like our entire friend circles, or?
Exactly. Since you just mentioned like Gen Z doesn't want to work 9 to 5, and that's kind of part of that. I think Gainsey was also bullish on it. He finds it funny and chills it and whatnot.
What do you think about the crypto XAI stuff? Because like,
I want to comment on your stuff earlier. Very like all those things are very agreeable in my opinion. Especially the nihilism, absurdism part. I think like that is very true. But the one thing I really started to be more skeptical about and have more doubts is basically Solana. Like, including the most blue chip meme coin, which is Fartcoin.
Would you say Fartcoin is the most blue chip meme coin right now?
On Solana.
Is it the largest market cap one too, or is Bonk a higher market cap?
Bonk is probably higher. Not in terms of market cap, but like in terms of like what came out of this cycle and what has like mindshare. It performs very poorly, and all that rambling just to say, as violent as price action, volume, and everything on Solana is, as GT are the people. So to your and Yuri's point, I think like cashing out on Solana is probably way more difficult than cashing out on Ethereum.
What exactly do you mean with cashing out? Like cashing
selling a meme coin.
Okay.
Yeah, because everything gets cheated to death on Solana, and like sometimes without a reason. Like everything is going well, team is building up the thing. I'm not just referring to meme coins, but I'm also referring to meme coins. And it's just confusing to me. Like, I would have not expected that. And on Ethereum, I think the price action is much healthier, but it kind of makes sense, right? Like, on Solana, you have everyone trying to make $500. I feel like on Ethereum, you have more whales that don't really care anymore, and they just like buy a meme because it's funny, and then it keeps going up. And that scares me a little bit. Or like, that confuses me a little bit. And I think
interesting to see you finally flip, not necessarily bearish, but like very critical of the meme coin trenches, whereas in the prior episodes, you've always like not been a Solana maxi, but like
no, it's
as close as you could get to that. But yeah, I agree. If you look at all of these meme coins on Solana that have gained a little bit of mindshare over the last, like, let's say 2 months, if you look at Chill House, if you look at House Coin, if you look at Unstable Coin, like all of these things, or even like Useless, they're just like ranging for forever for like the last 30 days. And it's so undecisive. Like, as soon as these things get to the range highs, they just get sold off immediately. And like, if you looked at the price action of meme coins prior to that, like, you had a lot of volatility to the upside and downside, but they were rarely ever range bound. Like, either they were exploding to the upside or they were getting sold off aggressively and just died. And right now they're all in this like weird limbo situation, and there's a very, very undecided price action around them.
Yeah. No, like, so what I said last time, and I would still say all those things today, is Solana is the only relevant chain when it comes to financial activity and volume and new things. Like, new things playing out. Like, no new launchpad will launch on Ethereum. Like, every new launchpad with an interesting new mechanism will launch on Solana, and that's still the case, and we're seeing that. And I think volume-wise, most of the action is on Solana. That didn't change. What did change, and this may have been a misconception from my side or was implicit, is because of that, the craziest performance runners, multiples, also being on Solana. So I think one thing I would take a step back on and be a little bit more conservative is maybe the biggest runner, or like maybe the highest multiple, you'll have on Avalanche because no one is using it. But those who do use it, they don't care about like a 2x. They just like buy it and forget about it. Avalanche, maybe not the best example because I don't think there's much. But Ethereum and Base, and I was also thinking like, Murad ended up his number one conviction play on Ethereum, SPX. And I think that probably played a role. And I don't think he spoke about it much because he didn't want to like piss off his other bags, such as like Giga or Retardio or USA Coin, So I feel like he doesn't make it too explicit, but in my mind, it probably played a bigger role than I would have anticipated. And that doesn't mean that I don't expect wild, violent price action on Solana, but it really, literally what I just said, it's going to be harder to sell because timing things on Solana, I think, will be more difficult and almost impossible than on Ethereum. On Ethereum, it's like, okay, like if your coin hits 1 billion, which there's a few examples now, like MOG hit 1 billion, SPX hit 2 billion. There's like a ton of tokens that hit like multiple hundreds of millions in market cap. You have time to sell. It's not like it dumps in a day. I mean, the worst example, even though it was crime and extraction on Solana, is like something like Libra, right? It's like you have minutes. And that's the new information that I'm putting on the table. It's like, I still think Solana has the most activity, most innovation, most volume and everything. It's just, it doesn't mean it's going to be easiest on that chain to catch a bid and have the highest multiples. I think that's not the case. I think Solana is actually one of the more difficult ecosystems to be successful financially, especially now.
If you look at volumes and like economic activity indicators, Ethereum and the broader EVM ecosystem is still dominating. Like, if you look at DEX volumes, both at the 24 hours and the 30-day metrics, ETH L1 is still leading. And if you aggregate the entire broader EVM ecosystem, I mean, it's vastly dominating Solana.
I mean, the broader EVM ecosystem doesn't make any sense. Everything is an EVM ecosystem. No, but if you just compare Ethereum with Solana, what does the data suggest?
Well, ETH, the 30-day DEX volume is 127 billion. Solana is 111 billion.
But
So,
but that's also because most of the stablecoin volume is on ETH. I mean, I think so. What I'm referring to,
no. I mean, Tron is running a huge amount of stablecoin transactions. Like,
okay, but when I say kind of like economic activity and innovation, and I don't want to like just make a random point just to push Solana. I couldn't care less. Like, it's more about like, in my mind, what I would take out is some stuff like stable coins. I think what I care about the most is like new things, not meme coins, like just like new things that are happening, like new protocols, new apps, new products. But of course, like I think ETH is still the bank of the world in crypto. It's like more activity than in Bitcoin, and it's still the place to be. But that's the whole point. Like, compare the growth of ETH beginning of the cycle till now versus Solana. That's my point. It's like Solana has been the fastest growing ecosystem this cycle. I think that's more the point, as opposed to like it has the highest numbers.
It was more of a catch-up growth in terms of, I mean, yeah, maybe on the consumer side and token launch side, you see more innovation on Solana, but everything that is more like serious financial applications, quote unquote, that is still happening on ETH. Like the average economic value, like the customer lifetime value of the average ETH L1 users is orders of magnitude higher than the customer lifetime value on Solana. Like these are not serious people to use that.
I totally agree with that. That's the point that I just made earlier. It's like Solana has a JIT extraction culture, which is a problem. It's more of a problem than I initially thought. But I think it's more a problem with regards. So maybe let me say why I think Solana won in the first place when it came to user adoption. I think it won in the first place because of usability. Like Phantom Wallet, low fees, fast execution. All retail, like 80% of retail was in Solana, basically. But old money institutions, big market makers, whales.
So to use the term old money in the context of crypto.
Old crypto money, right? Like ETH whales, Bitcoin whales. I mean, they've been more on Ethereum. And I actually think large cap meme coins were probably the thing that brought some of that money to Solana. And, I'm mainly coming from the perspective of, actually, that's the best way to articulate it. I'm mainly coming from a perspective of a builder who wants to build a consumer-facing crypto product. For that, with regards to the amount of retail users and the amount of experimentation and the amount of like volume and economic activity, I'm building a Solana. But there's no black and white. If I'm building a stablecoin thing or if I'm building a bank-like thing, I'd probably start in Ethereum. Like we spoke about that in one of the previous things. If I'm building something rather like innovative and new or like experimental, it's probably going to be on Solana. Like there's no tribalism here. Like I don't even own that much Sol. I have more ETH than Sol. Like it's not about that. It's more like as a user, I see myself using Solana more than Ethereum. Because on Ethereum, for example, it's slow money, right? It's like I have my stuff deposited, staking, for example, I may or may not, but like staking, some LP positions, this, that, and it just sits there and works. I'm not like clicking. On Solana, it's all about clicking. You click and you try to bid the new thing. That's the biggest difference.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that the whole ETH versus Sol tribalism is overrated. It depends on what you want to optimize for. I mean, they are still right now competing over a somewhat similar pool of capital and users, but I do think, especially with the influx of institutional money in ETH, that like the separation of these ecosystems and sort of a less competitive state between the two will take hold in the future. Maybe to finish, do you have any opinion on crypto X AI coming back? Because I do think it's like, if you look at the ability of retail to get exposure to AI, the onboarding rails of crypto and like the speculative nature of crypto, I think it is poised for a run up in this subsector. But I really fail to identify any individual catalyst that would lead to this run-up.
Sorry, what's the exact question?
So do you think that crypto XAI as a subsector will have a small season?
No, I don't think so.
Mm.
I mean, look at what crypto XAI brought up.
What did it bring up?
Fartcoin.
I don't think any, like, unless you're deep in the lore, nobody associates it with AI.
But
I think like that's a completely irrelevant connection.
it's the only thing, the only relevant thing crypto XAI brought up which didn't die.
Well, I mean, if you look at the market cap ranking of like loosely AI associated crypto bets,
Okay,
let's things are.
Let's take the most hyped thing, BitTensor, Tau. I read that everywhere about like, oh my god, crypto XAI, BitTensor is the thing. It's just one example. Like, I don't know where it's at.
It's sitting at 3.3 billion market cap, rank 44, if you rank it by market caps. So like the market cap of like the high market cap crypto XAI coins are still in the infrastructure side of things, like BitTensor, Near, Render, Akash, etc. Like these crypto XAI meme coins and like launch pads, with the exception of virtuals, they have largely died off. And I do think for everything that goes towards decentralized large language model training, everything regarding data ownership, everything regarding like human integrity, like, or like proving that you are a human versus an AI model, everything that is like going to serve as the transaction layer between AI agents and like anything touching robotics. I do think in the mid to long run, this is a very natural sector that will get combined with crypto, or at least will partly get captured by crypto. Again, similar as with financial infrastructure, there is a question and a debate to be had. Like, is crypto going to succeed in actually not only being used as a technology, but also being able to capture a value? Like, I think the strongest counter case you could make against my thesis that we will see a DeFi revival is that all of these TradFi or corporate chains by Stripe, Circle, etc., will just capture all the value by themselves, and none of this value, or only very little value, will trickle down to on-chain native applications. I think that's the strongest case you can make against that. And I mean, if AI and AI infrastructure companies are able to just use blockchain tech but build their like proprietary solutions and let none of this value flow through, then yes, it's also looking pretty dark for crypto XAI coins. Other than that, I do think in the like short to midterm, these things could catch a bit. Like, are these going to be backed by fundamentals and like be fairly valued? Probably not. Like, most of them will sell off again. Maybe somewhat similar to what we've seen in the crypto X gaming or Web3 gaming and metaverse sector last cycle. But like, it personally, if we see something resembling an alt season, it would surprise me a lot if this sector does not catch a bit. So like, I think the whole like Alex Becker thesis, I mean, think of him what you want, but I mean, I find him quite entertaining. Like, I do think at the core, he is onto something. Is this going to be long-term valuable, what he promotes? Absolutely not. But does it have decent chances of running? Yes.
What does he promote?
He's always shilling these very low cap crypto XAI infra coins. If you just go on CoinGecko and scroll down, I think he's talking about stuff like PAL AI. I think what are these other ones? If I just scroll down further, Pinling, he's been talking about that.
He poses with a Lambo.
Yeah, I mean, he does that to like fuck with people. Like, he is followed by a lot of stupid retail, and I think he appeals to a lot of stupid retail. But I do think like he brings it across quite directly that like he's doing that for show. Like, he's, in terms of his self-presentation, quite different at the core if you compare to like a a BitBoy of last cycle, or like all of these very notorious retail focused crypto traders and low cap shillers. And I mean, yes, you can completely bet against the like Alex Becker sector of coins, but I do think like the thesis he's promoting fundamentally, or not fundamentally, but in terms of liquidity flows, it does make sense under the assumption that we will see an all season.
I don't know what coins he promotes.
Just
if
like
they
really
are,
disgusting low cap shitters.
but like how low?
Usually
Like 20K?
No. Like it's not meme coins in that sense. It's like usually around like 50 million market cap. But I mean, they are illiquid on chain, so it's easy for them to hit a couple of multiples.
Does he disclose whether these are paid promotions?
I mean, he discloses whether he holds them.
But is it paid promotions?
No, I don't. I mean, like the way he does it, he either gets like an advisor stake and advises them, or he just buys them and shills them afterwards. And I think he's quite transparent about him. Like again, like I'm not promoting his calls in that sense, but I think like the logic he's applying to the retail segment of the market under the assumption of like helicopter money and a revival of the alt season, which is not unlikely. Like there are steps being prepared to give like inflation combating handouts to the vast majority of the US population right now, like direct stimulus checks as we've seen it in 2020. And that would definitely set us up with pretty decent preconditions for an all season. And I think if that happens, like I would be surprised if this whole crypto XAI sector, be it as trashy as it is and like as devoid of fundamentals as it may be in the mid to long run, I'd be very surprised if that doesn't catch a bid. Because as a like typical retail investor, what are the hot things right now? Crypto maybe coming back as a hot thing. AI is pretty hot, and like associated with AI, robotics. Other than that, there's nothing interesting to like shove your money into. And this whole like financial nihilism, hyper gambling mindset. So like that would be a very logical vertical to like shove your stimulus check into.
Yeah, so the only problem I have is, I mean, I really don't know. I wouldn't bet on it. Personally, I'm not excited about it. I think that the way AI x crypto or crypto x AI will capture value, and again, Fartcoin is the best example for that, is like will not happen in a way where people anticipate it will happen. It will not be like, crypto is a new technology, AI is a new technology. Maybe there can be a symbiotic newer technology that uses both. Like computation, blah blah blah. I don't think it will happen like that.
But I think that's exactly what happened.
I have to run, so we have to have a call actually. So yeah, I don't think that will happen. But you know, if and the market caps you mentioned, they're not that low. So I don't know. Like I can totally see these coins go from 50 million to 10 million. So I don't know. It's hard to tell. I mean, especially in Cosmos, we've seen a lot of like 50 to 80 million market cap coins go down to 10 million.
Yeah, because there's nobody who talked about them. Like these things didn't have any mindshare. Whereas you have like an Alex Becker and an Elio Trades with like 1.5 million YouTube subscribers and like the dumbest money in this industry following them. So like it is much easier to create hype and mindshare around them.
Yeah, let's see. We can assess after the cycle how they performed. For me, it's probably not worth the trade, but I'm also like very limited this cycle.
Yeah. All right.
Awesome.
Was a great session. I think we covered a pretty broad variety. Like when Yuri and I started, we dove deep into all the like digital asset treasury stuff, and now we ended up with like Alex Becker, 50 mil market cap.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, close the entire circle.
Thanks, Max.
See you next week.
Ciao, ciao.